All right, let's wrap up the 1 o'clock games. Chicago Bears 30, Las Vegas Raiders 12. Bears moved to 2-5, as we mentioned. The 1-5 teams dominant yesterday. Really good performances by the 1-5 teams. Raiders fall to 3-4. Brian Hoyer got the start for the Raiders with Jimmy Garoppolo hurt once again. Aiden O'Connell did see some relief work. It was a little hit or miss. The story, of course, the Chicago Bears start Division II. Rookie quarterback Tyson Bagent finishes 21 of 29 for $162 and a touchdown. 5.6 yards per attempt. Deontay Foreman had the receiving touchdown, also finds the end zone twice on the ground. It is interesting when you have backup QBs, when the offense looks just completely different. And so much like you're just kind of describing Tyrod Taylor and the Giants, it's like, hey, it just looks different than when Daniel Jones ran it, or when Andy Dalton comes in for Bryce Young. It looked different. This Bears offense looked completely different than the Justin Fields offense. I'm not saying it was necessarily better. I'm just saying the style was different, right? You had a quarterback who was hitting everything underneath. It was a bunch of little dink and dunk, and run game was effective, and Bears get the win.
You're saying the Bears should bench Justin Fields for Tyson Bagent?
Oh, I see what you've done there, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. No, you're right. I mean, that's what's happening this week in Chicago, right? Is Bagent the future?
Oh, there's going to be some spicy takes out there.
Is he the future in Chicago?
I liked our buddy Greg Rosenthal's tweet that even if the Raiders lose, these are valuable reps in Brian Hoyer's development. Yeah,
that's really good.
Just a waste of everybody's time sitting through a Brian Hoyer game.
We have a lot of dedicated listeners, some new ones, but you have a long-standing take that you want nothing to do with the backup quarterback who we completely know who he is.
No, it's
Brian
not that.
Hoyer's in year 14 of his career.
No. What my objection is the backup quarterback that actually cannot play games. That guy has no business being on an NFL roster because he's there essentially just for the work he does as a coach. He's there for the work he does in the meeting room, which doesn't require a roster spot being spent on him. Those guys I have no time for. Brian Hoyer is in a different category where he can play in games, and we saw the first time Aiden O'Connell played that the difference. So I think you kind of generally miscalculate just how prone young bad quarterbacks can be at putting the ball in harm's way, right? You sort of generally think that a bad quarterback is a bad quarterback, and what's the difference between 4, 5, 6 turnover-worthy plays in a game, right? I suspect if you're underestimating the depths to which that can get to, and actually a really bad quarterback over a full game might have 10 turnover-worthy plays. And the difference between – so you tend to think of guys like Brian Hoyer, well, he's not going to put the ball in harm's way. He will, because he's not that good. But he'll put it in harm's way less than a guy like Aiden O'Connell, who might go out there and throw 8 turnover-worthy plays. And at some point, the team looks at this and says, you know what, the rookie's not ready. At least with Brian Hoyer, we know there'll probably only be a couple of glaring bad plays. And we can live with that because that gives us a chance to win. It's just miserable, though. So I don't like it. But I understand why those guys exist in a way that's different from the last several years of Matt Castle's career, where you couldn't put him on the field. He couldn't play. So he's literally just chewing up a roster spot because he does good prep work or whatever. And that's just silly.
Matt Castle's catching strays now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He always seems to. That's your example.
I mean, that's one example. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, so the Raiders had been playing pretty well, overachieving a little bit. This has to be, even with Hoyer at quarterback, this has to be a disappointment. The Bears had one of the worst defenses in the league. Now, on one hand, Bears defense did play much better. On the other hand, it was Brian Hoyer. You had Davante Adams. And then there are macro things, which is Davante Adams is a way better football player, especially relative to his position, than Brian Hoyer.
Yes.
But sometimes Brian Hoyer throws a perfect fade pass. I mean, that wasn't even close. Adams, was it Stevenson? Whooped somebody on the route.
He wrecked him off on the release.
You don't see usually the corners, within a step on a fade.
Yeah, not this time.
This was 3 to 6 steps,
right,
of wide open, and Davante Adams drops it. Sometimes the better player lets down the worst player, and when all that adds up, the the Raiders get whooped.
So remember Davante Adams, we talked about it in the pregame, the preview show. Davante Adams had been making comments about how, look, I just want to win the game, and clearly the best way for that to happen is for you to give me the ball all the time because I'm the best player here. And you're like, all right, I can see logic to that. So Davante Adams had 7 targets in the first quarter, all of which seemed to come in like the first drive. It was like they just, oh, Adams wants the ball more? Right, well, let's see how that works. And every play was just a target to Davante Adams. And to be fair, it was working for a while. And then they kind of went away from that. And you got the Brian Hoyer performance. But it was, let me see. First play, Brian Hoyer, short left to Davante Adams. Second play, Brian Hoyer, short middle to Davante Adams. Third pass, Brian Hoyer, short left to Davante Adams. Fourth pass, Brian Hoyer, incomplete to Davante Adams. And that was a pass breakup by Tyreek Stevenson. So literally the first 4 pass
Keep going.
plays.
I want you to read every play in the game.
Just the pass plays. You don't need all of them. So the first 4 plays were pass plays. First 4 pass plays were to Davante Adams. They literally just went, oh, he wants the ball more? Let's see how that works. And I've never seen a more stark example of a guy like a receiver crying for the ball and then being answered immediately by, okay, cool, that works for us.
Yeah. Squeaky wheel game, Sam. Squeaky-ish wheel. Yeah, credit the Bears. What did you think of Bajan's performance? It was, again, the stats don't jump off the stat sheet or anything like that, but it was completely different, right? Whereas a Justin Fields isn't really thrown underneath a lot. It's a lot more boom or bust. He's going to take a lot of sacks and also get the ball down the field. Bajan, hits Deontay Foreman underneath, and Foreman breaks a tackle, gets into the end zone for a touchdown. A lot of underneath stuff for the Bears here.
A lot of underneath stuff. It was one of those kind of, it's the exact opposite of a Justin Fields performance. It's like quietly efficient and understated, and if you don't make a big mistake, that works. It's like, It's pretty good. The problem with, like this, remember last time Bajan played, it's like, who's another one of those guys where the narrative was, well, outside of the glaring mistake, it was pretty good. Well, this was that game, right? You didn't have the glaring mistake, so it was generally pretty good.
That was your take. That's what you said.
That's what I mean. Like
Ignore the 2 bad plays.
Yeah.
It was not bad.
Well, this was that game where you didn't have those 2 bad plays that you had to ignore, so it was generally pretty good. And he made a few of those kind of high leverage plays. He had a couple of scrambles in there that were good. After a touchdown, he's like working the crowd, early on. He's like getting the crowd involved. I kind of like Bajan's moxie. I think he's got a little bit of swag to him. The guy from where he's from has no business having.
Oh, I mean,
Division II. They kept saying he'd won the Division II Heisman, because you have to say the Division II Heisman because nobody even knows what the hell that is.
Don't mock. As a former Division II preseason All-American,
right? Do
not mock Division II.
Do you know what the Division II Heisman is actually called?
No.
Then shut up.
I just want to stand up for other fellow Division II athletes.
Yeah.
Okay. As a former Division II professional athlete, and yes, I was a preseason All-American in 2003. I was not a postseason All-American, but a preseason All-American per Baseball America.
Okay.
In 2003. I need to start putting that on the resume.
Yeah, right next to your Hall of Famers.
Preseason Division II All-American. Does that count as All-American?
What the hell do I know?
I got to find that. It's in an old Baseball America issue. I was very excited. Coming off a Division II World Series performance, and they were like, just pick the guy with the most wins on this team. We'll make him a preseason All-American. There it is. That was me. So I appreciate Bajan. You got to have some moxie if you're a Division II player.
Yeah.
Right? Last year at this team, he's just playing D2 games.
Winning the D2 Heisman that nobody knows
Winning the D2 Heisman. I think our guy Thor Nystrom too said something like, in the playoffs, you sacked like 8 times and got wrecked in the D2 playoffs or whatever.
Did he win?
I don't remember. He was winning games here in the NFL.
Deontay Foreman had a great game.
I wanted to highlight, Foreman and then Darrington Evans. I mean, 3rd and 4th string, basically, right? You don't have Khalil Herbert. You don't have Roschon Johnson. And, you just never know when Deontay Foreman's going to look like he did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And looking really
or even last year. I mean, he had a few of those games last year.
He did have some of those games last year. You never know when they're going to pop up. Mm-hmm. So, impressive all-around win by the Bears. Shout out to Jaquan Brisker as well. with a really nice game for the Bears at safety, flying downhill, making plays in the pass game and the run game. And Gervin Dexter with a good game.
Yeah. So
and Tyree Wilson. I want to highlight all the non-model guys. Go ahead.
Tyree Wilson
update.
Gets his first career sack.
It was on a Hail Mary attempt.
Yes, by Nathan Peterman.
Oh, by Peterman.
Yeah.
How bad is Bajan's arm that Peterman is the...
He seems to be like, didn't he get a Hail Mary attempt last year or the year before from, again, same idea, like the designated Hail Mary guy? Does Peterman have like a weirdly insane arm that I'm not aware of?
No, I think what's happening is there's an inside joke around the NFL where Peterman's career stat line is so bad. They were like, let's get him out there for the Hail Mary. Can he average an interception every other throw? Can we get to where Nathan Peterman's career stat? Somebody, this is why these shows go long.
The entire league is colluding to ensure that Nathan Peterman's passer rating just stays at 0 for his entire career.
He has a This is good stuff, Sam. He has a career passer. So his career passer rating is 39.4.
Well, okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
4 touchdowns, 13 picks.
Ouch.
In his career. Somebody out there is throwing Peterman in there for the chuckles.
But we actually need interceptions because just incomplete passes is going to actually raise his passer rating.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Had he just thrown the ball away, the passer rating would have gone up. Would have gone up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Peterman is like running to the left and just spends his life trying to wait for this pass to manufacture, and by the time he actually gets it out of his hand, he got sacked by Tyree Wilson. That was so. Our friend Josh Dubow from the AP. Tyree Wilson had been the only top 10 draft defensive lineman / edge rusher in the last 15 years with 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks, and 0 tackles for loss in the first 6 games of his career.
Wow. And he's the first round pick to catch that many strays, 6 straight weeks on the PFF NFL podcast.
I mean, non-model guy.
Well, you have to highlight the non-model guys.
We pointed this out to Trev, right? Like when you rocked up there and put him like 127th in
I heard you talking
your
about it,
big board, and we were like, no, you can't. That's too far. That's too bad. You can't do that. You're making us look silly. Maybe he is the 127th best player in the draft.
He turned the corner, got the sack yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Good win.
Other crazy stat in this draft, or other crazy stat in this game, and I don't know how far this pushed. This was just one of those graphics that pops up on the screen during the game. Max Crosby had played 233 consecutive defensive snaps, which apparently is the longest streak in the NFL among defensive linemen since at least 2016. You know what the last player to do that was?
Chandler Jones.
No, Olivier Vernon.
Olivier Vernon, huh?
Had 280 back in 2016.
Impressive.
That's insane. 233 or 280 consecutive snaps from a defensive lineman is bananas.
Yeah, at a position that usually rotates.
Well, particularly, yeah. I mean, some teams, those guys are playing 50% of the snaps, whereas Crosby is playing every snap.
Yeah, that is really impressive. Bears move to 2-5. Raiders fall to 3-4.